Welcome to the show. Today's topic is the dangers of going rogue. And you may be wondering what that is about. We're not talking about elephants running wild. We're talking about in the context of listening to your angels, following your guidance that you receive. When you hear clear guidance, you receive messages, signs, symbols, and you know what your angels are directing you to do, guiding you toward. And you decide that you know better, or you just don't want to listen to them. I'm going to do what I want to do. And I've done it. You're going to hear a little bit about that today and some other stories. I think stories are powerful. Stories help underscore points and help people understand concepts. And there is danger involved. I mean, not always. Sometimes it's going to be a little lesson, and sometimes it leads to a dark night of the soul. We talked about that on an earlier episode. I'll reiterate a little bit of that today, but I want to talk about just the kind of things that can happen. And I wish I'd known, but apparently I needed these lessons to get me to where I am now with my trust level and that I have for my angels and the guidance they give me. And I see that even when I cannot see why they're directing me to do things or a certain way or in a certain time, that there's reason for it. And things that I can't see, things I can't possibly know as a human. And they're just trying to protect me, trying to help me make my life smoother. But it's sort of like I decided to jump out of the plane with no parachute a few times. So I'll talk to you about that. I wouldn't do it again, but I'll talk to you about that. The first one I really think about is when I was 18 and I was in college and I was dating this very handsome man. He looked like young Clark Gable. And we were both involved in a local theater group. And we kept being cast opposite each other in Shakespearean productions and musicals, kind of pushing us together. And we were attracted to one another for sure. And his parents had a business in town. And shortly after we started dating, he took me to his house to meet his parents. They were just great people. And I loved them right away, felt very welcome, really warm people. Towards the end of a year of dating, this guy asked me to marry him. I was 18, and I accepted. So on the next visit with his family, his mother took me aside and she said in a low tone, "Don't marry my son." And I had self-esteem issues, particularly back then. And the first thing I thought was, she doesn't like me, or she doesn't think I'm good enough for him. It went right to what's wrong with me instead of listening to the words this lovely woman told me. She's now on the other side and she's probably listening. I feel her spirit pushing in now, listening as we're talking about this. But she said, there's something missing in him. He does not know how to feel. But I didn't understand that. I had not studied psychology yet, worked in the field. I was very sheltered and quite an innocent 18, to be honest. So again, I personalized it. And I thought, oh gosh, I just felt awful. I waited till I got home and I cried. And it just never occurred to me that she was trying to protect me or help me, shield me. So I had seen red flags. I mean, I was 18 and young and naive, but I saw red flags. There were things showing his temper, moments of disdain towards me, not caring if I was hurt or humiliated. Those are big red flags, but another red flag was the night before our wedding. My very good friend, who has now also been on the other side for a long time, he said, "Don't marry him. You don't really know him. This marriage is a mistake." And I thought, why? He actually lived with my fiance. They were sharing a house with a pilot. And so the three of them were housemates. And I thought, and this guy was involved with us at the theater. And I thought, the night before my wedding, you're going to say this? And I just thought, honestly, he was jealous because we had some interest in one another during a production of a show. But I knew that this guy was also dramatic. So I took all that into consideration. And I thought, it's too late to cancel the wedding. My angels told me to listen to this friend, but I didn't. And something that's not in my book that I didn't even remember, my mother apologized to me 2 weeks ago when I was visiting. She said, I feel so awful. When you and your fiance came to me shortly before the wedding and you said, we think we should postpone the wedding. And I told you it's too late. And I honestly had zero memory of that. I said, are you sure? And she said 100%. And I feel so bad because of what happened with you and how it affected your daughter. And I just had no memory. It was so interesting. So I actually had big second thoughts myself that I didn't even remember, that I pushed back in my mind. And I wanted to postpone it. And probably I would have canceled it. I don't know. Who knows? That was so long ago, dark ages. But it wasn't, we did get married, and it wasn't long after. Within 2 weeks, his explosive temper really showed up, and he was threatening me and throwing vacuum cleaners across the room, smashing it into the wall, and just terrorizing and terrifying me. And I can remember he got so frightening one night. There was a big storm going on outside, and I lived at a higher elevation even than I do now. And I went across the alley. There was a store on the other side from where our apartment was, and there were dumpsters back there. And I hid between the two dumpsters with my back against the building, somewhat sheltered, but it rained hard and it got really cold. And I didn't want to go to my family's house because I was too embarrassed, and I didn't want them to know what was going on. So I never told them, not till the marriage was long over did I tell them what was going on. I felt like I was supposed to handle this, like whatever happens, I'm supposed to handle it. And here's another interesting thing. It never occurred to me to say, I want to annul this marriage. I guess, again, I was just 19. I turned 19 just before the wedding. I didn't even know such a thing existed. And those are the kind of things that I've had to forgive myself for, because I wasn't the same person. I was really a kid. So I see that now. So I just remember how lost and hopeless I felt that night, hiding back there, just crying. And I didn't want to go home. And my angels came in to comfort me. They really just surrounded me with love and hope. And they told me that I could leave that marriage and save myself so much pain. And I felt the truth of that. But instead, I went back to him because I thought you were supposed to make a marriage work no matter what. I didn't think there were any outs on that it was just no matter what. I was married to him for 10 years. And during that time, he terrorized me. He hurt me. He was vicious. He called me names. He was just really pretty horrendous. He would just go away on camping trips with his friend with no notice for like 5 days and come back when he felt like it, and leave me with no car with a baby in the middle of the country. It wasn't good. And I was miserable. And we had our daughter. My daughter is the joy of my life. Greatest thing that happened, so there's some joy, there's love moment in the midst of this. I got a wonderful child. But his abuse became physical, more and more physical as the years went by, till he was choking me, punching me in the stomach, just kind of pushing me across the room, throwing me on the floor, things like that, not usually in front of our daughter. We did split up for a while because my angels were adamant. They're like, you have to get out of this situation. And I know I did. And I was worn down and I was scared. And in the middle of all this, my parents moved away from town because there was a family emergency. So they moved 100 miles south, and they had their hands full. They had my aunt, my father's sister, had passed of cancer and had 3 young daughters. My parents bought a house in Phoenix, uprooted their life, bought a house in Phoenix, took care, brought the girls into their home, and were trying to raise them. And the girls had never had any kind of structure. It was a real difficult time. So I really didn't feel like I should bother my parents with any of this. Throughout this time, my angels were telling me, you are stronger than you know. you have a core of steel. You need to find that. You need to hang on to that. And they told me that even though he made all kinds of threats, like he would say things like, go ahead and go, but you'll never see our daughter again. And, or I felt like he was going to kill me because of the physical violence. And they said that I would be able to leave and that he wouldn't kill me. And that, it was a little bit of comfort. I still wasn't totally convinced because he was scary. But their words did sustain me. Clearly I made it. Here I am, alive and in the flesh. And finally, I got this great job. And it just literally was dropped in my lap. I was managing this financial planning firm. And one of the ladies who was she probably did sell advertising to the boss, the owner of the company. She came in one day and said, how would you like to work at the radio station? And I'm like, I don't have any experience with that. And she's like, we have this position and I'm recommending you. And I got it, and boom, I had this new job. And then I made really good money with perks. And that was the turning point for me. I felt more empowered to leave, and we did separate. Unfortunately, during that time, he began to physically abuse our daughter. And that was the end for me. I'm like, absolutely not. It's too bad that abusing me wasn't the line, but definitely abusing our daughter in that way was. And it's not like he wasn't abusive of her before, because he would say things to her like, nobody cares what you think. You're just a girl, and just shut up, kids. Nobody cares what kids think, things like that, just not allowed to express her emotions, her feelings, her needs. So she and I became very, very close, and I left. He broke into the house. He hurt me physically. Then he broke into the house when we were gone and broke everything I owned. I came home and I couldn't get in the front door. There was something blocking it. And I got really scared. I called the police. The police came in and the whole house was trashed except our daughter's bedroom. And they came and asked me, do you have a husband or a boyfriend? I'm like, I have a husband, but we're separated. Where does he live? And I'm like, that was the first time I realized that he might have done that. And he did. They arrested him, put him in jail. And it was like having a few nights of peace that I knew he wasn't going to be harassing us or showing up or being scary, because both my daughter and I were really scared after that, he was going to break in again and do something. It upset her, of course, to see the whole house trashed like that and have everything that I owned broken, everything in the kitchen, the living room, broken, destroyed. I had to start over. And even from a distance, it wasn't very long after our divorce that he remarried, and he married someone with a mental illness who was unmedicated, and both of them were harassing us from a distance. He moved out of state. They were harassing us from a distance. And through this time, my angels were fortifying me. They're like, you're going to make it. It's going to be okay. And I couldn't see any way it was going to be okay. And then he killed himself, just kind of out of the blue, shot himself out of state. And that was, just a horrific thing to go through, but it gave my daughter peace. Like instantly she had this anger issue and it just went away. And it was really hard. It still is. We talk about this regularly. She's 41 now, and we still talk about it. And all of that still affects her. And it still affects me too, despite many years of therapy and treatment for myself, it still affects me. How can it not? 10 years of terrorizing behavior plus the distance terrorizing afterwards. But the point being, let's go back to the beginning of the story where the angels had his mother tell me, don't marry my son. That's pretty powerful. When someone's mother tells you, don't marry my son. And I knew she, now I can see, like, even after our divorce, I stayed good friends with his parents, his brother. They liked me very much. They loved me and were really sad, but they understood why this had to happen. But I could have prevented all of this. I think about it though. I'm like, but then I wouldn't have my daughter. So it wouldn't change it, but I wouldn't have my daughter. That's just unacceptable. So I'm just telling you this because sometimes these seeming things that just seem like it's a personal thing against you, if you take things personally, you might really miss the true guidance you're receiving and the importance of it, and see how there's protection, there's redirection going on for you. So there's more. There's more. Apparently that wasn't enough for me. About 13 years later, I had a second toxic relationship, and it was terrible in a different way. This time I did hear my angels more clearly and often, and they warned me not to get involved. They told me to walk away. I was sure they were right, but I came up with all kinds of justification for staying. Boy, doesn't that sound familiar? I'd already given up a lot to be with him. I gave up my career, a really important social group, my hometown, being close to my friends, just so many things, being at the band I sang with, just all kinds of things to be with him because he wanted to move to Phoenix. And I didn't want another failed relationship. I so badly wanted to have a healthy long-term relationship. He did have some great qualities, but those great qualities helped me to ignore the really negative ones. I've mentioned this a little bit before, but I'm going to tell you, that guy love bombed me. And if you know what about narcissists, love bombing is when there's just this over gushing love, and it made me feel really uncomfortable, which is just another thing I look back on and why didn't you walk away? Why would you want to be with somebody who makes you feel so uncomfortable? But he said the right things, and my angels were telling me, this guy's not for you. You need to don't do this. No, just no. All the signs were there. And I felt sorry for him because he had this big sob story of how all these women had been terrible to him. And I'm sure he's saying that about me now to the new person in his life. There's always an endless stream of new people, but he abused me in a different way because the guy was very dark and I couldn't see that. It was blocked from me, but I did see he clearly had a sex addiction, and it was with men and women, and it was just over the top, really over the top. I finally said I wasn't ready to completely kick him out, which just blows my mind right now, but I said, you have to sleep upstairs in the guest room. And that went on for almost a year. It's just, I look back on that and I'm like, your angels were telling you, get him out of here, get him out of here. And it was making me sick knowing he was up there. So the crazy things that we can do when we're just not really tapping into the guidance, we're not following our own intuition, we're going by emotions. And feeling sorry for somebody is not a reason to continue in an abusive relationship, any kind of abuse. So after that relationship ended, and it could have ended before it even began, because my angels again were like, nope, not this guy. No. Then I saw how dark he really was. He continues even now to occasionally attack me with his new girlfriend, and he attacks my mentor for mediumship now and then. It's like, what the world? We've been separated for 8 years. We've been gone for 8 years. And he just keeps, tapping back in. So it's a test for me to, can I stand strong against this? Can I block it? Can I do whatever I need to do to end this? And I get better at it all the time. It just doesn't upset me as much. I actually don't respond. I don't want to give one more ounce of energy to a person like that in my life. But I ignored my angels. It's just yet another instance of ignoring my angels at my peril. And I tell you these stories because I'm so not alone in this. I see a lot of women. I think women are just more likely to reach out for help. There's certainly men who go through this as well, who got signs, who heard messages, who felt their intuition that a person wasn't right, and their angels were giving them all the signs, and they just walked right into it and stayed in it. This is pretty common. So if you're in a situation like this now, really, this is a great time to detach yourself from whatever that person is or isn't doing. Who cares? Let them live their journey. Focus on you and getting you healthy. And that was the key for me. Like, I started thinking, I just made sure that I got the help I needed. I joined CODA. CODA is amazing, like Codependence Anonymous. Most light workers are codependent, whether they realize it or not. And I went for a year, met wonderful friends I'm still friends with, gained so much knowledge and insight. And I've been able to help so many people through my business with the knowledge I gained through my own experiences and my recovery from this. I think it'd be very difficult for a person to come into my circle, whether it's friends, romantic, otherwise, business, who has nefarious intentions and get me to stay anywhere in their orbit at this point. I'm just like, no, I am so tuned into my angels and so trusting in their guidance. I get it. And I don't think I know more than my angels do, not ever. So I just think that's a really healthy place to come to for your own sake. So there's other stories, but let me talk about this. Like, when people first used the expression going rogue, it meant behaving in an erratic or a dangerous fashion. But today it really indicates that a person displays independence or fails to follow an expected script. So that's more what I'm talking about in today's topic. Is the expected script is you get married, you stay married, you figure out ways to live with it or overcome it. You hope it gets better. That sadly is the expected script. But your angels know the path you decided for yourself and how best to keep you on it. And when you step off of it, they are not going to be quiet about it. You have to listen to that, whether you like it or not. That's not me threatening you. That's me telling you my sad learning experiences with this is I just wish I had listened and not felt like I had to go with what I wanted to do at that moment. The expected script now is that you're going to listen to your angels and heed their words by following them. When you don't know it's your angels speaking to you, it makes it difficult to trust what you're hearing. And I feel like more doubts can creep in, having you wondering if your fears are just what you hear. And you might push those thoughts aside and continue in the course that seems right to you, despite what your angels are telling you you need to do. That kind of confusion happens frequently when you're early in a spiritual journey. You're still developing that level of trust. It's very much like being in a new relationship, and whether it's friends, romantic, business, and trust comes over time, right? Trust comes over time with your angels too, for most people, because a lot of people begin with a concept of, I'm not sure angels are real. Oh, you need to read my blog post on Are Angels Real? You need to read that on ivoryangelicmedium.com. They are real. They're very real. And they're real whether you believe in them, whether you acknowledge them or not, whether you care about them or not, they're still there. So when you do know for sure your angels are talking to you and you understand the knowledge they possess about your intended path, your future, what's happening behind the scenes, it does naturally becomes easier to trust them. You want to, because it's like insider information, spiritual insider information that's not illegal. You might not come to this place quickly. I really wouldn't expect that you would. Again, it takes time. And it can take some hard lessons to believe that your angels know best. And I think that was what was happening for me, is I needed a few hard lessons and I got them. I didn't think I'd survive that last one. I was beaten so low, physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. I just didn't want to go on. I wasn't suicidal. I just didn't want to go on. I had no energy left, nothing left. My business partner, Roz, talks about when we first met, we were working at a a spiritual center in Sedona, and we became friends pretty quickly. And she tells people like, oh, Ivory was a shadow of who she is now. She was beaten so low. I mean, you could just see it and feel it. I was walking wounded when I first got to Sedona, but having that distance, even 100 miles, helped so much. And just a fresh start, being in a home where he'd never been, working in a new place, doing my spiritual work full time for the first time, which was exciting and a little scary, but mostly exciting. And so why would it be that you're supposed to learn hard lessons? Think about this. I mean, intense challenges help you gain knowledge and insight about yourself. If you're never tested, how do you know how strong you are? If you're never tested, challenged, how do you learn the hard lessons? I just think we can't learn it in a bubble. So these other stories are people I know personally. The names are changed. They all gave me permission to talk about them. The first one is about Joan, not her real name. So Joan was looking for a new home, and her realtor told her and her husband to see a craftsman style house. And as soon as she walked in, Joan just loved that home. She felt welcome and truly at home right away. Let somebody into the room here. And then her husband just took an immediate dislike to the home. He didn't like it at all. And he said, there's a presence here. The angels were saying there's a presence here that will not be good for your husband. And they were both kind of shocked. She heard it first, told her husband about it. They both kind of poo-pooed it off because she loved the house so much and she was determined to live there. But it didn't take long living in that home for her to realize a male presence was there. And it wanted her to live there, but resented her husband. He never liked that house or felt comfortable in it, but Joan eventually felt some ambivalence about living there because that spirit hovered too close to her and her husband, and he wanted to move away. But they stayed about a year, and during that time, neither Joan or her husband slept well or felt like it was home. Things had really shifted dramatically for her. Joan and her husband decided to sell the home and move, but it cost a lot of time and money. It just was bad timing in the market for it. But having learned a lesson, Joan asked her angels to guide them to a home that would be welcoming for both of them. What a great idea, right? And their angels pointed them to a new home quickly where they lived happily for many years. And it really changed things. Like they both their sleep was good, their marriage, their feelings, their emotions were more harmonious. And so let your angels help you with these things. This is actually something I just need to tell you this. This is something I help a lot of people and realtors with, about tuning into the energy of an address, about a home or a property, to see if that's going to be a good place for them. So the point being, the energy of an address, the land, the energy of the home can either be harmonious for you, it can be neutral, which it means you're fine. It's not going to be fantastic, but it's fine. Or it can be negative, where it's such a mismatch, you will never feel good there, never feel at ease. And so, that's something you can consider before you, whether it's with me or somebody else, just having somebody who has that ability to look into that. Another story is a friend of mine, Crystal. She moved to Sedona. She wanted to work for a busy shop as a psychic and healer. And she'd been to this place before. She enjoyed her time shopping, getting readings. She was really excited to meet with the owner about renting a room there. But as she pulled into the parking lot to do that, she heard her angels say, "Find another place." And she said it just like took her breath away. Like, what? And she took a moment to ask them what the problem was. And her angels clearly said, "Darkness within." And they were right. Having been in this place, though, Crystal didn't understand the reference and shrugged it off. It's one thing to go into a place as a visitor briefly, and another thing to spend your days there absorbing that energy. She was excited and determined to move ahead with her plan. She really wanted to do it, so she did it. She rented a room there and began seeing customers quickly. Things went well for about a week, and then she began to note some disturbing activities at this place. She heard one employee loudly saying negative things about some of the people she knew were the most ethical, talented readers working there. And a few days later, she saw they had added black magic items for sale in the store, which really was a red alert for her. The flag was waving. And then one of the other readers began talking to her about Satanism, and she's like, hold the flag. Oh, no. And she, had put all these crystals around her room to block that person and asked the angels keep them away from her. That was really scary. And being a person of light, Crystal knew she had to leave. She stopped doing readings there before their first month ended, and she immediately found space in a shop with other people who were of the light, and it made all the difference. Like right away, she felt like embraced with this warm, loving energy, and she felt so much better. She said that what she had experienced there frightened her so badly. She'd never been around dark people before like that, and I understand it's scary. She could understand why her angels had warned her away, and she wished she just listened because they knew those things were going on. How could she know as a potential, a former customer would not know that? To me, the great thing that Crystal did in this instance was to see that she made a mistake and leave as quickly as possible. That's the best thing you can do. If you don't listen to your angels right away and you go rogue, when you know you made a mistake, undo it as quickly as you can. Save yourself the toxic hell, please. So we're only human. We're going to make mistakes. We're going to make bad choices. We're going to go our own ways sometimes. I mean, we have free will, right? So we're going to use it. But if you can recognize and rectify those off-course choices right away, you can't go too far off course. You're not going to get dragged into a dark night of the soul. You're not going to be depleted of your energy, your health, all the things that can happen. It can really knock you completely off course, derail your path, maybe even make it impossible for you to get back to what you're here to do. I did reconnect with Crystal a few years later, and we're still in touch. She was working at that other establishment, still loving it. And as she told me, the people there were so friendly and supportive, and she could feel their light. And during her first week there, she realized how negatively that previous business had impacted her. Her spiritual gifts became more refined, improved the quality of her readings and healings, and she felt happier and just less stress. And I just want to say real quick, if you're here live with me on the show and you'd like to ask a question or share a story, you can use the raise your hand feature. And is that raise the hand feature, or you can ask it in the chat room and be happy to answer your questions. A different one more story here today is about a business story. I will call him Bill. He was ready to expand his business, and he needed a partner to handle some aspects of the company, the things that were not his strength. And after meeting with a few candidates, he decided to bring, we'll call him Matthew, in as a partner. He felt drawn to Matthew and saw that Matthew had skills that would help propel the business to the next level. Many of Bill's family and circle of friends who met Matthew offered caution about going into business with him. Some said they didn't trust him. They didn't know why, they just didn't trust him. And others said they couldn't put their finger on it, but keep looking for somebody else. Choose a different partner, a few of them said. This really shocked and upset Bill, as he couldn't understand what they saw that he did not. Bill admits he had a nagging doubt about Matthew, but he was so relieved to find someone with Matthew's skills that he pushed it aside. Bill had heard thoughts like, look deeper and not this man. He had attributed those thoughts to just being his own cautious nature. He did bring Bill in as a partner, and things were good for about a year. Matthew handled accounts receivable and payable, freeing Bill to seek new clients and give more attention to the existing clientele. Then a supplier contacted Bill complaining that Bill's company had not paid the supplier. And this was a real surprise and shock to Bill, because he stays, on top of those things. They also said that Matthew, his new partner, was not returning calls. They were angry. They rightfully wanted answers. Bill looked into the book that night after hours and discovered that large multiple supplier invoices were unpaid and overdue. And it really upset him, of course. He asked Matthew, why he was not paying these bills. And Matthew always had some explanation, but it just didn't add up. There's another red flag waving. Bill knew there was plenty of money coming in to keep up with the bills. Those negative comments his family and friends had made about Matthew began really going around and around in his head, and he just couldn't get it out of his mind. He felt alarm bells going off about the situation. And that's your angels just putting you on a really high alert, just like, come on, see what's going on here, see the truth. Bill decided to take a deeper look into the business's accounting records, and he saw that payments were being made regularly to a company he did not recognize. These payments started months earlier in smaller amounts, and each month the amount had gone up. Now the total sent to this company had left them unable to pay their supplier bills. So the evidence was there, and it was clear Matthew was stealing from the business. The next day, he presented Matthew with the evidence and had charges filed against this guy. And Bill felt betrayed and blindsided. But when we talked about this, after his first session with me, he came back and he said he really thought about the situation. And he could see that he'd received warning messages from his angels, that sometimes they, came through his family and friends. He had clear warnings. And it wasn't that Bill had been caught by surprise. It was that he chose to ignore the messages and signs. Just kind of like I did for myself, you got to forgive yourself. I encourage Bill to not beat himself up about it. You can't go back and fix the past. You can't undo your mistakes, but you can put your time and energy into fixing it and working on yourself so that you're stronger, your intuition's clearer, so that if something like that happens in future, you're very unlikely to not see the truth of the situation or the person. So I think that it's pretty easy to see the many different ways that ignoring your guidance can get you in trouble. One of the things I was going to talk about too was when I was 16 and I was in charge of my little brothers and sisters, 4 of them, while my parents were on a trip. And I wasn't supposed to drive anywhere unless it was an emergency, but I got invited to a party and I didn't want to leave the kids at home. So I brought them with me. That's a great idea. Let's bring 4 little kids to a teenage party. So I had most of them in the back of the truck, my dad's truck, and I had my sister, my boyfriend, and his brother in the cab with me. And we're driving in this area that's got dirt roads, winding roads with steep drop-offs on the side. And there's a car in front of me that I'm following to get to this party. Back then, that area was not real developed at all. And if you didn't know where you're going, it's not like there wasn't a street sign or something. So following them, and they're driving too fast, and I hear in my head, slow down. And I wanted to, because I was scared and I was still a new driver, and I wanted to slow down. But I also wanted to go to that party. Oh, the wisdom and thinking of a teenager, right? How embarrassing. So we go around a curve. My angels had just said again, slow down. And we go around this curve, and the wheels of the truck slide in the dirt off the side of this very steep drop off, both the right wheels. And the truck starts to tilt. And my next thought is, oh my God, I just killed the mom. And my heart hurts so bad. And right at that moment, like all of this angelic light came into the cab, and I felt their energy just like surrounding me. And the truck lifted up and went careening across the road and up onto this ramp, this dirt and rocky ramp that I didn't even know was there. It just happened to be where I needed it. Stopped the truck. We hit a rock, cracked the bug shield on my dad's truck. And I sat there just shaking, till I could breathe again. And I don't think, it's interesting, I don't think that my siblings realized how close to death we all were. I really don't think that they realized the wheels had gone off the road and that the truck had tilted. I don't know why, but I'm glad. It's like just one of the most shameful moments of my life to think that I almost killed all these people, including my little brother and sisters. And I had plenty of warning. When you're angels, you're driving and you feel unsafe, and your angels are saying, slow down, and you keep going fast anyway. Wow. There's so many instances in my life where I really can't explain why I'm still alive. That's one of them. That's definitely one of them. So many things that happened that, each one I realized I had warning. Each one I realized that it wasn't even something I thought was right to do. And so it really is a balance of your own intuition and trusting yourself over your human desires. The human desire was, I wanted to go to the party. My higher self knew it wasn't safe to drive like that, nor to have all the kids in the back of the truck or take them to a party like that. So there was a lot of things at play in all of these situations. My human side wanted that first marriage to work out so badly. My parents are coming up on their 64th wedding anniversary. Of course, I'm going to think you're supposed to stay married together, forever. And plenty of couples do. And I had that example. So I wanted to be like that. But you have to be with the right partner to do that, to accomplish that. And it's really not about how long you're together, but whether you're meant to be together. How much of your life are you willing to sacrifice on a bad decision? And this isn't just about relationships. I speak about that because the majority of clients that I see, people who contact me about my book, they're people who have issues with, they went rogue and got into a really toxic relationship. So it's just super common, but it's all kind of things. What if your angels tell you to not go to a job interview, but it's a job you've been looking for, and finally here's a place that has an opening, they're interested in you, and your angels are saying, don't go, do not interview, not for you. Can you see how that would be really hard to pass that up? But that's the time when you've got to tap into your intuition, try to put your emotions, your desires aside, get quiet, get into that sort of meditative state and ask, is this job in my best and highest good? And I probably talked about this before, but not everybody listens to every episode. So you can do this with your angels. You can ask your angels, you can say to them, it's not really an ask, say to them, let me feel what a yes is from you. And however you feel angels, like in my book, in the chapter about feeling your angels, it tells you the different ways you can feel them and how to learn to do that. However you feel that is usually you'll get a big blast of that. And that's your yes. And for me, when it's no, I feel nothing, just nothing. And when it's a maybe, I'll feel this like literally kind of wishy-washy energy going through me that's sort of like, it could go either way. It's up to you. Do what you think. If I have any doubts or there's a red flag or even just a weird feeling about something, not just jobs, not relationships, anything in life, I do this and I ask my angels because I have that connection. You can have that same connection. Just because I was born being able to see and hear and feel angels doesn't mean you can't develop that. You absolutely can. And I was telling a wonderful client yesterday that she said she can, I can't remember if she could feel them, but not see them. And I said, it's okay. So, maybe you'll be really good at 2 of those skills and it'll take a long time to get the 3rd, or maybe you'll never have the 3rd. The most important thing is that you can hear them, because hearing them is the bulk of the guidance you get. And my mission given to me by my angels, who just wouldn't stop about it, is to get that word out there, to help people know they can do that and to teach them how to do it. That's part of what this podcast is about. But, my work is in spirituality as a whole. I don't just communicate with angels, but it's the core of my work and my mission. But I'm going to continue to talk about spiritual topics and self-growth and well-being, because all of that goes hand in hand to just bring you to your best life, whatever that is for you. Nobody gets to decide that but you. And how do you know when you've reached your best life? Well, you just will. You'll be able to see so many blessings in your life far more than you're worried about what you don't have. You know, that's the least important thing in life, is what we don't have in our life right now. So I encourage you, use your ability, your free will, and make your decisions and go forward, but try to get some answers from your angels. You know, work on those skills. I don't want to forget to tell you, this is the book that I wrote. It's called Let Your Angels Lead. It's on Amazon. It goes into this topic in depth. It talks about the going rogue. That's one chapter out of this long book, but the bulk of it is communicating with angels, learning to feel, see, hear them, and how to build that relationship. And what's good in here is, if you get stuck, and most people do, there's a long chapter of troubleshooting to overcome and remove the barriers within. I want to say hello to my listeners in the Netherlands. Thank you for tuning in. I just love knowing that you're out there and listening. Thank you so much. And let you know that next week, the topic is Archangel Metatron. In the meantime, may your angels surround you. May your angels protect you every moment, every day of your life. Have a beautiful week.